Hello and welcome back to the Sleep Like a Baby podcast. I'm your host Hannah and I'm an infant sleep consultant as well as a mum living and working in South East London. And this week's episode covers a lot. So I wanted to chat to my friend and colleague Helen Davies, who is a health visitor. She's a mum of 4 and she's also a holistic sleep coach as well. And so she obviously has just this huge wealth of knowledge and experience and expertise when it comes to all things parenting. And I'm a really big fan of her Instagram account, essential_parenting, because not only is she super knowledgeable and informative, but she's very, very funny. And what I thought was really special about this conversation actually was the way that she made me laugh so much. And I just love how dry and to the point she is and quick-witted. But also there were points when I really had to sort of fight back the tears and I got quite emotional listening to Helen's story. So yeah, it's a bit of a roller coaster episode, but God, I'm so grateful to Helen and her generosity and courage to talk so openly and so honestly about everything she's experienced. And so there are some trigger warnings for this week's episode. We do talk about domestic abuse and mental illness, but we also talk about the highs and lows of parenting, and it's definitely one of those laugh and cry sorts of episodes. And actually one of the reasons I asked Helen to come on the podcast was because she had been talking on Instagram about the perception that gentle parenting is a sort of trend or it's just a fad, and how actually there's a lot of misunderstanding about what gentle parenting is, and also perhaps sometimes it is seen as a little bit of a trend or a fad, when actually what we're talking about is treating children and babies as human beings, and we're working on ourselves and we're trying to understand them and support them better so that we can break cycles of generational pain and trauma and difficulties that previous generations have gone through. So I thought it was a really, really interesting conversation, and I hope you enjoy listening. I also, before we get to that though, I just had one other housekeeping announcement, and that is that in December I'm going to be running 2 live webinars about night weaning. So the first will be for breastfeeding families, and the second will then be for families who are predominantly bottle feeding their babies. And essentially I'll be covering ways to reduce feeds or introduce some gentle boundaries. Perhaps you're thinking about cutting back on feeds in the future, or maybe you're already now at a point where you feel like your child is ready and you're keen to stop feeding them at night entirely. This is both webinars are designed for babies over the age of 12 months, and there are, of course, entirely gentle and responsive and respectful strategies that you can use to make those kinds of changes for your family. So they're on sale now, and I'll include a link in the show notes for anyone that's interested. The Sleep Like a Baby podcast is supported by The Octopus Club, the online marketplace where you can buy, sell and give away baby and kid stuff without any hassle. If your home is piling up with toys, clothes and bits of kit that your little one no longer uses, The Octopus Club offers an easy, environmentally friendly way of selling or donating things to other families. And if you're on the hunt for high quality second-hand goods, this is the place for you. Honestly, the stuff on there is gorgeous. Check them out on Instagram or go straight to their website, theoctopusclub.com, to sign up today. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Hi, Helen.
Hello.
Do you know what? It's funny. People always think my name's Helen.
Why did you do that?
I don't know if the way I say Hannah sounds like Helen.
Well, look, I used to answer the register when somebody said Alan. So,
Oh,
Alan,
there
yeah.
we go. I won't call you Alan today. But anyway, Helen, I don't think it sounds like Hannah, but anyway. How are you doing, Helen?
Yes, good, thank you. Not enjoying the weather, but good.
Yeah, it's miserable, isn't it? And so I'm assuming all your children are at least at school today, though.
They are, thank the good Lord above. They are. Yes, they've all buggered off. Oh, apart from Daisy, she's going in a bit, but yeah.
Okay. So for people that don't know you, you're a mum of four.
Yeah.
And so you've got ages between 5 and 17. So all of the different life stages right now.
Yes.
Could you tell me a little bit then about like who you are and your kind of professional background?
So I started my working life as a kids nurse, and were straight from qualifying, went into kids intensive care, which I absolutely loved. I did that for about 13 years. And then I left that job to retrain, do my master's in health visiting. Gosh, I forgot what it was. Health visiting, did that, loved that. And then I had my number 4 little person. And my other half works offshore, so I had to leave the NHS, but I still wanted to do something that was helping people, and sleep has always been a bit of a passion slash need. So I went into did the same course that you did, didn't I? And started doing that a little bit, and just was kind of putting my toe in the water. But things have been pretty hard with Evie, my number 4. So I hadn't been able to kind of commit to it too much. And then lockdown happened, and then recognizing that people needed that support from a friendly face, whether it was talking about sleep or weaning or development or behavior or potty training, all that kind of stuff that hits you right between the eyes in that 0 to 5 years that you've had a baby. So I started doing things more around the kind of independent private health visiting thing with a sleep specialism, I suppose. So that's where I'm at. That's what essential parenting is. I love it.
And I love your account because you are very, very funny and dry, and you offer, obviously you've got this huge wealth of experience and knowledge and expertise, but also a lot of humor as well, because if you don't laugh,
well, quite.
If
you don't laugh, you drink gin. And then you laugh anyway, so you may as well just laugh past the gin.
But also sometimes you do cry, so like, like you've also been very open and honest, which I love as well, and I think it's so important. And just to make us all feel less alone, and like it's, I think that's one of the hardest things, especially for parents who kind of were having children for the first time in the pandemic as well. It's like just feeling like, is this just me? Is this normal? Am I the only one finding it this hard? Or my child is sleeping or whatever, eating, toileting the way they are.
I think we always say, don't we, about needing a village. This is something we always blather on about. You need your village. And during that time, gosh, that village was banned. So even if you got one, which most of us don't really, especially not to what we need, but it was I think people are still finding it hard, because now the health visiting service from the NHS is really pared down and pared back, and so people haven't had their babies weighed, and they haven't had anyone look at them, and tongue ties are going missing.
Yeah, they are. All of
postnatal
that.
depression and all, gosh.
Yeah. And I was saying to you before we started recording that I do feel like health visitors are the sort of like most like maligned group of healthcare professionals. Like they're the ones that, and I think I might be guilty of this myself, of making these kind of sweeping generalizations, and maybe if people aren't listening to this inside the UK, maybe we could explain a bit about what a health visitor does, because it's quite a specifically I think British.
Yes, it is. So I think we are public health nurses with a specialism in health promotion and child protection. So that was kind of what we were there for. And so we would be available to families with a child age 0 to 5 to be a point of contact for anything that was bothering them. And we acted as a kind of signposting service. So if I saw a child who obviously got some kind of physiotherapy needs, then I would refer to physio, podiatry, speech and language, dietitian, all those kind of things. But we were like the first protocol, so we were like a family friend. That's how I saw it. And we'd go in, and we'd often do listening visits for families with postnatal depression. that was our point, really.
Yeah.
Not kind of what it is now, but that was the point. But to be honest, most health visitors are vile. And I
You
think,
can say that because you
I
are.
can say that. I can say that. I know a lot of beautiful health visitors,
Yeah.
and I've been very lucky to work with a lot of beautiful health visitors. But I've also known and worked with a lot of old battle axes.
Yeah.
Just throw in their own experience and use it as gospel. And I think some people don't realise that when you're dealing with a vulnerable family, that the things that you say have a massive impact. And if you're not careful with the words that you use and the way you say it and your tone, you can, you've got somebody from here and all of a sudden they're
Yeah. Gosh, it's so true, isn't it? And there are, there are some brilliant health visitors. The last health visitor I saw was excellent and really helpful and non-judgmental, and had some really good information, and was just like, and did that job of signposting. I had a few concerns and she was like, here it is, and blah blah blah, this is what you need to do. It was really good, and she followed up. But then I've had some not so good health visit with different health visitors where I've left the appointment in tears, or
they're power hungry.
yeah.
Some of them are.
But I also think, well, like you were saying, you have to know so much about such a broad range of subjects. I just think a health visitor's day must be crazy,
It's
and
fab.
these
It's fab, yeah. I love it because you need. The problem is that when somebody wants specific sleep support or specific breastfeeding support, your health visitor is probably not the person that you want to go to. In the same way as if you'd got a kind of a dietary issue. I mean, as a health visitor, I am good at dealing with allergies, but that's probably my children's nursing stuff that comes with that. But yeah, I think when a health visitor gives advice, if you're not 100% sure, check it out because often it's anecdotal.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, particularly in the UK, we have a check, don't we, between sort of 10 and 12 months.
Yeah.
And I think that's when a lot of parents are told by certain health visitors, not all, but certain health visitors, oh, well, they should be sleeping through the night by now, or like, that it's a habit wake, or it's just I hate the 3 words just for comfort. I like the worst 3 words ever when it comes to baby sleep. But that's very much something I get a lot of messages on Instagram from people being like, I just had my 1-year check and I was told this. But anyway.
And I think for some reason, and health is, as a population, but also health visitors, we seem to kind of assume somebody's parenting ability on how their child eats or sleeps, which are 2 things that are not measurable because they're so individual. You can't say, well, that child needs 8 hours sleep there and that child needs 7 there, but 2 there. It's a completely individual, movable kind of thing. So
yeah.
Yeah,
It's so difficult. And in the NHS, I suppose, like the appointments now are so short as well. I do feel for health visitors because I know someone that spends like an hour and a half talking with each family and still feeling like, oh, I could have spoken to you for another 3 hours to, and I send a questionnaire ahead of my appointment, all of that stuff. And even that sometimes I'm like, might send a few follow-up email questions just to make sure I've got all of the information. And actually, I look back to my health visitor appointments, not that they're sleep consultants, but I would go in for 15 minutes, you get your baby weighed, there's a few questions, blah blah blah. It's such like it's difficult to get all of that support for whatever that family's going through, isn't it?
I don't think you can get 50 minutes now.
No.
And the other is if you've got something that you're really, something that's personal or delicate, and you've got a queue of people behind you.
Yes. Yeah.
That's not great. I'm hoping it'll go full circle and we'll get it back again, but we'll see. We will see.
Yeah. Well, families definitely deserve better, but but obviously we have amazing people like you who are offering, I suppose, private support and that people can kind of go. Yeah. So what I wanted to ask, I suppose, was like, what made you sort of become more and more interested in sleep, other than just being a parent? Like, when you had your first 17 years ago, what was that experience like? And
oh my goodness, hell on earth. So there's 2 reasons. There's 2 reasons that I fell into the sleep world. The first is my own personal journey, and the second was Daisy. And so I had Daisy. She was about 2. She was being a little bugger sleeping, and I was pregnant with my second, Jack. And so I spoke to the health visitor, and they gave me the Ferber book. So I read this. I was like, oh, okay, right. This is, and I'm quite methodical. I like to know, I like to have kind of things in a structured way. So that was very structured. I thought, okay, I can do this. So I did the sleep training with Daisy, and it was the control crying one. So we'd go back for a minute, then 3, then the kind. And it was absolutely horrific. It was absolutely horrific, but it worked.
Yeah.
It worked in 3 days. It worked, and she was sleeping, and there was no problems. Then something kicked off. I don't know. It's probably the birth of Jack. I don't know, but it happened again, and I was at a point where I picked the book up and I thought, I'm going to have to do this again. And I just thought, I can't do this again. It was so hard. So I didn't. I did something else. I can't remember what it was, but I knew, even though it had worked, it was obvious that it was going to be something I'd have to revisit. And it was just so awful for those 3 days that the thought of having to do it again was just beyond me. So that's my reason with my kids. My rationale behind it was, so my background was being in quite an abusive relationship and struggling a lot with anxiety and depression. And so I had a nervous breakdown at, gosh, how old? Jack was 2, so 13 years ago. And it happened in the middle of the night, and I was very poorly. I was under a psychiatrist. But the way the anxiety played out was that I'd get very anxious about not sleeping. I was working in PICU then, so if I didn't sleep, and I was looking after a child on a ventilator.
Oh my goodness, Helen.
The stress of that. So I didn't sleep, and I didn't sleep for 4 weeks, apart from like 40 minutes here and there. And so that knowledge of true exhaustion and sleep deprivation and the anxiety that it kind of creates because you're worried about not sleeping, so you don't sleep, so you're worried. That was and the loneliness in the middle of the night. And I was frightened of my bedroom, frightened of my bed. It's ridiculous, isn't it? But
I think that's a very real thing. And I suppose being in the context of a toxic, abusive relationship, that's an incredibly isolating experience as well, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yeah. So that was how I kind of came into it, because it's just such a massive thing. Sleep deprivation is such a massive thing, and it affects everything.
It does. Gosh, so that's so hard. And so you've got a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old.
And I was pregnant again.
And you were pregnant again. And then oh my goodness, and you're working in pediatric intensive care. Oh my goodness. That's
I took a lot of time off sick. I was under because I was pregnant at the time, I was under a psychiatrist at the mother and baby unit. Although it wasn't postnatal anxiety, postnatal depression, I'd had it for a lot of time before I was pregnant again. But they saw me, and I was under them for a year, over 12 months. No, it was 18 months.
And can I ask, when did the relationship end? Or
that was several years later. That was about 3 or 4 years later. He had his last affair and left. And since then, shocker, I've been getting better. I mean, I think I'll probably be on medication forever. Gosh, I'm a different person now.
I bet. Wow, what a story. That's really, I mean, I'm so sorry that you had to experience.
Well done. I mean, it was horrific, but it's given me such an amazing empathy, and I love helping people anyway, but I just thought, well, if this situation, this crap situation can do some good, I'll have it.
And gosh, I've got so many questions. Going back, I suppose, to the sleep and your own sort of mental health and sleep. So you were and with 3 children very close together in age, I suppose. How did you get the support? Like, what did the support look like for you?
So when my ex was still here, people didn't really know what was happening. So I was quite isolated because I didn't talk about it. I was embarrassed and ashamed.
Yes.
But I did, I mean, obviously I'd got support with the psychiatrist, and I was she was managing my medication, but I was also seeing a community psychiatric nurse who was dealing with me, kind of talking therapies. So I didn't really have a lot. I mean, I've got family and I've got friends, but because they didn't really know what was going on, it was a very lonely time. And it was only after he left that then I started to heal, really, and realized for what it was. I think I was just in this kind of, oh, it'll get better.
I think that word shame is just like,
oh yeah,
that's a huge part of those situations, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And you know, as an outsider, it, like, you know, when you look into other people, and as a health visitor and a nurse, and you must have you see these situations, I suppose, yourself, and you know that there's nothing shameful about that situation.
Absolutely not, no.
But the shame that you can feel in yourself is so real, isn't it?
Yes. And it doesn't matter, even if I was to say to somebody, you know, there is no shame there. It helps because I can say there is no shame there. I've been there and I've felt this, but I've come out the other side. And, you know, that helps. But people don't believe it until you feel it yourself. They don't believe it. They're going to heal.
And what would you say to someone then? Did you know at the time that your relationship was a part of this, a puzzle piece in the whole?
Yes, I think so. I think I did. I am quite intuitive with my own emotions. So I always thought that I knew it exactly, but it was only really after I started healing that because I've forgotten a lot of stuff. I have a lot of flashbacks. It's those that kind of make me go, oh gosh, yes, there was that. And then that made me think like that. And that made, do you know what I mean? So your brain has got this incredible way of just kind of compartmentalizing it, think we'll do that later.
Yeah, it's
when you're strong enough.
Yeah, it's a trauma response, isn't it? It's a survival mechanism. It's like, I cannot process all of that right now, so I'm going to keep going. And especially, I think, when you're a mother,
yes,
you have to keep putting one foot in front of the other.
You absolutely do. Yeah.
What
a palaver.
Oh, Helen, I also think, though, it's so good to hear that you've come through that, you know, and that and that you're still processing stuff, and like, it's, you know, you're dealing.
I think it's one of those things that I'll be dealing and processing for the rest of my life, but that's okay. You know, I'm not in any danger now, so I can do it safely in my own time when I feel secure to, and I can unpick bits. But it is a lifetime's work.
Are you comfortable talking a bit more about toxic relationships and what people might want to look out for, or what kind of red flags were in your own life? Or
can do. Absolutely. So I think, I mean, we all know about the physical abuse, don't we? We know that. We know it's physical abuse, but I think one of the most insidious methods of abuse is the emotional coercion, control, that kind of thing. And I think that is the hardest to prove, and it's the easiest to explain away. So, and it's the easiest to kind of go, oh, maybe it was, maybe it is me, maybe it is, maybe I haven't got a sense of humor, maybe he didn't mean it like that.
He's just having a bad day, or like, there's this lot of stress, it's not his fault right now, he's just got a lot on his plate and I need to help him.
I think it was only actually when I was doing my health visiting, and I was writing down, we were doing this domestic abuse talk, and I always knew that there was other kinds of abuse, but the emotional abuse was the most damaging for me. And during that talk, we had to write down all the things that a victim of emotional abuse may feel, and all the things that a perpetrator of emotional abuse may do. And so it's a really interesting thing to do. If you've got the headspace to do it, write down what would somebody who's suffering from emotional abuse feel, how would they behave, what would they be feeling, And then the flip side, what would that other person be doing to make them feel like that? And looking at those 2 pieces of paper, and I was thinking, that's me, that's him.
Oh, wow.
So sometimes just kind of, even if you don't want to unpick specific situations, to just look at the feelings and the actions and whether or not they kind of line up can be a big help. And it was at that point I thought, gosh, this is me, this is my life.
Wow.
She'd left by then, so it was a safe, well, it wasn't, but it was,
do you think that the abuse was do you think that parenthood exacerbated abuse? Do you think it, because that often happens, doesn't it? Is that
yes, I absolutely think so. And we both had very different parenting styles, because he's a knob and I'm not. And kids are bloody hard work, aren't they? They are absolutely hard work, and sometimes they are knobs as well. Most kids are idiots from time to time.
Definitely.
And sleep deprivation, I mean, I could make all this up as excuses, but it's not an excuse, but it is a rush. It adds to the
I didn't mean that, I suppose, as an excuse for him. I suppose that's it. But sometimes they do say that pregnancy can really that domestic abuse rates do go up, don't they, with each subsequent pregnancy, and for some reason it can be a trigger, I suppose, for worsening abuse. And it's something I think we're starting to talk more about in our society. I do think there is some really good work being done out there, but I think we need to really keep having these conversations and show how normal it is, sadly, and that it does happen to normal people, and that it's not just a story, I don't know, a sensational storyline on a soap, or something that it's real life, it's normal life.
Nobody would have known. We went to church. I did the school run. I'd got a busy social life and working, and nobody knew.
Oh, gosh.
But it chips away. So I would definitely recommend looking at those 2 bits of, if you think something's not quite right, the balance is not quite right, have a think of that, and reach out, speak to me about it. I'd always be happy to talk to anybody who feels like they're in that kind of a situation.
Okay, so well, thank you so much for being just so honest and open, because it's really generous of you and brave. And
very welcome.
And I think I think we just need to talk more about relationships. And then you had your 4th child,
I did.
Evie, a few years later.
Yes.
And do you want to talk a bit about Evie and how that's been?
So Evie is, I'm now with my partner Phil, who is he's just gorgeous. He's such a lovely, gentle man. And so we've had Evie. Evie spent most of lockdown naked. We came back home from camping. We'd got the wet tent in the van, so it was a bit smelly. So we drove from South Wales to the Midlands with her fingers like this, because it smelled that she'd got all this blood blisters around her nose. So she's very, very high need. We're getting her assessed for autism. She doesn't sleep.
No.
So
she's 5 now, but so in lockdown she was what, 2.5? I think that, I don't know, I think lots of people had it very hard, but I often count my lucky stars I didn't have a 2-year-old in 2020. I think that must have been very difficult.
2-year-olds are spectacularly ridiculous. They are.
I love 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds, but I just think that stage is it's intense.
It's ludicrous,
so to be stuck at home, or maybe your teenagers were harder, I don't know.
No, they are fairly. No.
They're They have their moments.
They've all got their own quirks about them, definitely. But yeah, Evie, she is. I mean, I've been looking after parents for about 25 years, and I know a lot about parenting. I know a lot about strategies, behaviour, that kind of thing. Do I know how to parent Evie? Do I buggery? I have not got a clue. I'm not winging it completely.
Oh, I mean, I love that because, yeah. And that's what I love about this podcast, actually, is like all of these experts and amazing people with like just so much knowledge and experience. None of us know. No, I don't include myself in that, but I mean that no one.
We don't. None of us do. No, I know. But it's been having the ability to say, I haven't got a clue. What do you think?
Yeah. Because it's hard. Every child is so different, right? And every circumstance is so different. And but yeah, and of course, children who are neurodiverse do have different sleep, don't they? And that's something I actually get really, really, really angry about. Is the other day, like I saw this quite big Instagram account, a parenting expert, so-called, saying she doesn't believe that there are any bad sleepers. No baby should be a bad sleeper. Every baby has the capacity with the right sort of support to.
And spending £1,000 with her.
Yes, of course. Yeah. So there is no such thing as a bad baby sleeper. You just haven't figured it out yet. And that's something that really tormented me for like the first year of my son's life. I just hadn't figured it out. What was I missing? On me, exactly. Yeah. Because I think I actually spent quite a bit of money with her as well. Not thousands, fortunately, but I was like, no, it's got to be me. It's got to be me that's
You're doing something wrong. You are doing something wrong. Yeah. Oh, it makes me so proud. I tell this story all the time, but I was looking when I was doing my sleep training. Not sleep training. When I was
learning about sleep. Yeah, studying sleep. Yeah.
I was looking at people's, these big Instagram, these big Facebook groups, and there's one lady, I won't say who it is, but there was one lady who is like a school training, sleep training school. So she trains other sleep trainers. And on her, it was either a web page or Facebook, it said, if you don't sleep train your children, you will end up getting divorced.
Yes.
You will crash your car, you'll lose your job, and your child will be developmentally damaged. But it's okay because you spend £1,000 with her, none of those things will happen. Sorted. So when you are sleep deprived and all those hormones, and you just desperately want nothing bad to happen to your child and nothing bad to happen to your life, because if something bad happens, how will I do this and how will I pay for that? And you just go down this spiral, and so you spend it.
Yeah, of course you do. Of course, because that is tapping into all of your worst fears, all of them right there. That is your pain point, and you're like, yep, absolutely. You have just expressed my absolute worst nightmare. Want to avoid that. And they seem very, very confident with it.
Brilliant. And they've got a massive following. So why wouldn't you believe it?
And celebrity endorsements and everything. But this is what really grinds my gears about the idea of like all babies can sleep if you've just got the right approach, because obviously not all babies who are wakeful are neurodiverse, but a percentage of them will be.
Yes.
And even, I think it's really interesting. Even we know that people with dyslexia, for example, sleep slightly differently than people without dyslexia. So when I say there's a huge, spectrum out there of different brains and how we work in our sleep. So this idea that all babies could sleep 12 hours or whatever, or you can train them into being this just robot that does what you want it to do.
Pain. What about babies? What about what about babies who are weaning off heroin?
Yes.
Stupid claim to make.
Yeah. So there's no such thing as a bad sleeper. It just really annoys me. And then I think about Evie, and her brain it sounds like an amazing place, but it's slightly different to maybe another child, and I think this as well, I only have one child, but seeing him now, he's 3.5, I see who he is now, and I think, oh well, of course you were never going to do X, Y, and Z. Like, I see who you are. He's still a relatively early riser because that is his personality. Like, he is up in the morning and he wants to go, and he's always been like that. And I think I killed myself trying to think what I was doing wrong. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
well, it's just
Yeah.
you. That's just who you are, and I think,
Oh,
yeah, anyway.
oh, and I feel so sorry for you when I mean,
Yeah.
oh gosh,
I
if
know.
you'd have just been able to. I mean, the problem with Instagram, and as wonderful it is, because there's people
Yeah.
like you and there, and people
And you, yeah.
to trust, but there's so much there that makes you doubt
Yeah.
your ability to trust your gut.
Yeah.
So much on there that I think, unfortunately, now we there's so much information. It's information overload, and
Yeah.
people just don't kind of sit with things and go, okay, so what? Oh no, got to fix it
Yeah.
before something else happens. Before this creates a rod. Before
Yeah. Before I crash my car and
Oh, before Christmas, yeah, absolutely,
yeah. Yeah.
yeah. It's
It
a
is
dark
really,
world.
yeah. It's and I suppose, yeah, I do. Yeah. So with Evie and her sleep, like
Mm.
what was it from the start? What was she like? Was she a good sleeper at the start? I know I shouldn't say
All
good
right.
sleeper, but
Yeah, she was okay. I mean, she was okay. I think she's always been incredibly anxious, very, very
yeah,
anxious, which I
yeah,
think is part of the kind of neurodiversity. She clings on to things.
yeah,
And so she would take ages to go to sleep. So I'd put her into
yeah,
bed and she'd be very happy to just kind of chatter to herself in her cot, which was wonderful. But she'd be there for 4 hours,
yes,
bed at 7, because that's when she was starting to show that she was
yeah.
tired. And she'd still be awake at 10, 11. So that lasted a period of time. And then she thought, well, bugger this. I'm sitting up here chatting. Them buggers are downstairs. I'm up now. So now we're in a situation where she won't go to bed until she probably doesn't want to go to sleep until about 10, 11. So she probably has about 7, 8 hours a night.
Yeah.
I need more sleep than that.
Yeah.
And she also needs physical contact, firm physical contact to sleep.
Yeah, the sensory stuff is
Yeah.
really important. Yeah.
So I'm going to start getting some bricks
Yeah.
in a bag. Have that.
Could you swaddle a 5-year-old? I wonder.
I know. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure you've thought about it at times.
I have, Gaffer tape.
Yes, gaffer tape would work really well.
That would work. And a little bit over here.
Oh wow, that's intense though, I guess. Yeah. But that's nothing that you could have ever trained out of her. That's what I'm saying. That's what's really frustrating.
I've tried.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Before I realised that she did have some of these neuro quirks.
Yeah.
All the stuff that we've learned on our course just didn't work with her.
Yeah.
Just doesn't work with her. She is her own little person, and so she needs something completely unique for her. And actually, that means at the moment she needs me to be next to her to go to sleep. She doesn't need me. That's what we do.
Yeah.
That's what we do. So.
Oh well, she's very lucky to have a mum that understands that and can help.
Yeah. She is, bless her.
Yeah. Oh well, I think what does the diagnosis process mean to you? Like, is that something that's helping you?
Honestly don't know.
Yeah.
We've started it in that they know we're waiting for our first appointment. We've not started that. I suppose it will help in school. She does get very overwhelmed by things. Whether or not it helps us with nighttime, she may need a melatonin prescription, and that's something that she will need. She needs to have a consultant back in for that. I don't know. I've got no issues with diagnoses and labels. I don't feel it's a label. I think it will be a tool for her to access support and for us to access support when we need it, rather than a kind of than a negative thing. That's what I'm hoping. But we'll see. This is a lifetime's journey, I think, isn't it?
It is. How were your other children as sleepers? So you mentioned Daisy, but the middle two.
Daisy was So Jack had really bad night terrors.
Yeah.
Very bad night terrors, which I know we say aren't related to any kind of trauma or or anything that goes on, but they stopped when my ex left.
That's really
So
interesting.
that just doesn't kind of marry up with all the research, but it was certainly anecdotally what I found, that
Yeah.
stress left, the night terrors stopped. And Rory, who is my 12-year-old, so he was 2 when my ex left, and he was waking multiple times in the night, multiple times, and that stopped as well. And he started
Wow.
through.
Wow. That's really interesting.
I know. So I don't quite know what. I don't really know what that was all about, but
Yeah.
they've always been okay. They've always been okay sleepers, early risers,
Yeah.
bedwetters.
Yeah.
It all happens at night time. A lot of anxiety. Daisy has a lot of anxiety, so we used to say the worry bugs came out at night, because that's when worries
Yeah.
more. So yeah, there's always been something cracking off around night time with all of them.
Yeah, I bet. It's really interesting about the night terrors though, because my son has them.
Yeah.
I think he had a mild one last night actually, but it was
Mm.
very anyway. And definitely I see for him, overtiredness is definitely a trigger, like overstimulation, just or sickness or
Yeah.
anything like that. Like that's like a kind of, I always know they're coming. But sometimes when there's like a period of change or something, yeah, like an not even like something that I would perceive as like a big emotional upheaval, but like, going on holiday, coming back, having that change in that routine. I
Yeah.
think when we got back from our last holiday, the week after,
Yeah.
it was like that. He was really, I could see him really processing it. He really found like he's a creature. Routine is very, very important for him.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
makes him feel very anxious, I think, when his routines change, which is not
Yes.
unusual for
Yeah.
children.
No, not.
And yeah, and so it makes sense that for your son that whatever was going on at home could have been playing into it.
Yeah. You don't know what goes on in these little minds, do you?
No, I also don't want anyone to think, maybe someone's listening to this thinking, oh god, my child has night terrors,
No,
is it
absolutely.
because they're mentally
No,
unhealthy or something? I
no.
don't want
Well, Evie
no.
has night terrors too, and
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
they, and actually Daisy used to, and so I don't, I see so many more times that it's just one of those things, and generally it's they've got a full bladder,
yes,
or knackered,
yeah,
or not very well. They are the
yeah,
reason,
yeah,
but it was just for
yes,
interest. Anecdotally, that
yeah,
was the situation with Jack.
and the
And
genetic element as well.
yes, 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 of
Yeah,
course,
yeah.
yeah.
I'm a really weird sleeper. I think I had them as a child. I'm a sleepwalker, a sleep talker, all of that stuff.
Really?
Yeah. And I'm absolutely bricking it for my son now. I feel like, what genes have I given? I think he's got my weird sleep genes. I do feel so sorry for my mother. She'd find me in these places. Once and like you, she was a mum of 4 and so permanently knackered. And she'd like get up at maybe, go to wash her face in the bathroom at night. She once just found me sat in the empty bathtub, just sat up, staring into space.
Wow,
And
that's freaky.
can you imagine finding a 9-year-old child in your bathtub just for no reason?
Dear me.
I
God.
know. I know.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
I feel like I don't know.
this is karma. This is karma,
It
isn't
is.
it?
It's all karma. Yeah, it is. I mean, when you were working as a kind of an NHS health visitor, what was the most common sleep challenge that people came to you with?
Oh gosh. I think it was well, one of two. One is not being able to teach them to self-soothe.
Right.
And two, not being able to put them down drowsy but awake.
Okay.
Which of course are both impossible feats.
Yeah.
I mean, I could in 25 years looking after families, I could probably count on one hand the children that do drowsy but awake.
Yeah.
None others. None others. One hand.
And
Thousands of families.
And what about you? So obviously, like you went through that whole Ferber process with Daisy. And you didn't want to do it again. But at what point did you start to think maybe this whole self-soothing and drowsy but awake thing? When I'm not sure that this might actually just be bollocks. Like when did that sort of creep in?
Well, I think when I realised that I had to do it again,
Yeah.
lazy, when I thought, oh my goodness, this is not a one, this was horrific, but it's sorted now. That wasn't the case. I have to do it again. And then just as I was doing my health visitor training, learning more about brain development and, behaviour and manipulation, which isn't manipulation, it's just kind of that part of the brain is not formed properly. Then it kind of all clicked in. Then, of course, I did the course that we've done.
Yeah.
And it was just like, oh, that's it. That's it.
Yeah. Were you trying with your subsequent children to kind of get them to go drowsy but awake a little bit, or?
Yes. Yeah, I think I was. I mean, I knew I didn't want to do anything like further.
Yeah.
But still elements of sleep training that I was still, well, they need to understand that this is their cot. This is where they go to sleep. They need to know that, gosh.
Yeah.
Get in there.
Yeah.
Shut up.
I know. And where do you think it comes from for parents, that drowsy but awake? Do you think like it's people telling them, like family, or do you think social media has made things worse?
Absolutely. Because it's all wrapped around this idea of the things that we do to help our children are a negative association. So whether it's feeding or rocking or patting or cuddling or whatever, that if your child goes down drowsy but awake, they don't need all that stuff, that feeding and rocking, which of course they absolutely flipping do. So, it's all that, and that is what goes on in all the mainstream sleep training accounts. You need to stop doing that. You need to stop doing that because you need to teach them to self-soothe. And I just did a post not that long ago about if a child falls asleep after a prolonged period of crying, is that self-soothing? And of course it isn't. It's just bloody exhaustion. And I don't know about you, but if ever you've had watched a really sad film or had some bad news and you cried and cried and cried, you go to sleep.
Yeah.
Because you're knackered.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Just emotionally spent. That's not self-soothing.
Helen, I'm a crier. Like I cry all the time.
I
cry out all the time. And crying is exhausting. As someone who really likes a good cry, I know it knocks me out.
I know.
But I don't sleep well when I've cried myself to sleep. That's what I also know. It doesn't feel nice.
It doesn't. No, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
I think social media's got a lot to answer for. It's got a lot of wonderful parts to it, but it's got a lot of really shitty bits as well.
It hasn't. I think sometimes something we were talking about, wasn't it? Was that the idea then that gentle parenting is a thing, and that it's a trend or a fad or whatever. That's that's an interesting kind of corner of the internet, isn't it?
Yeah, I think before there's a couple of things. One is this kind of vibe that it's meant to seem so dreamy and kind of like, oh, aren't we wonderful, and permissive and a little bit lazy and unattainable actually for humans, and because things piss us off. Excuse me, get on our nerves. And before it was synonymous with things like breastfeeding and co-sleeping and baby wearing and cloth nappies and all those kind of things. And if people didn't feel like they fitted in with one of those things, like maybe you got a baby in NICU, or maybe you breastfeed, or maybe you didn't want to breastfeed, or you couldn't baby wear, you couldn't afford cloth nappies, whatever, and you weren't part of that gang. I think that's really sad. But I mean, I love the idea of gentle parenting, but I am a gentle parent, but I'm not a gentle person. I'm not mild-mannered, mellow. No. I'm the opposite of that. I'm a gobshite. So I think this idea that we've got to fit in with these kind of standards to label ourselves as it.
I couldn't agree more, and I felt that very strongly. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's parts of me that are very crunchy. I'm a lefty vegetarian, do you know what I mean? Like Londoner. I do get that is there is that side to me, but at the same time, I didn't identify as that sort of earth mother. I mean, I think that's a myth anyway, isn't it? I don't think anyone really is, but you know, I did feel like if you're going to like not sleep train, then everything's got to be blissful and you've just got to be endlessly serene, and that's not me either, because I swear and get angry and have to do some deep breathing and say mean things sometimes, because I'm not a serene Zen Buddhist master.
No, I'm not.
No.
And the thing is, when you come to something, you know, whether it's chocolate or poo, I don't feel gentle. I don't feel zen. I don't, you know, you can't express your dissatisfaction. Who's shit on the floor? You know, without and still love your kids. It doesn't have to, it's not an all or nothing thing. And I think the other thing is trying to be an attached parent in a detached society is bloody hard work.
Yeah.
So when we add all these rules, well, to be a gentle parent or an attachment parent, you've got to do this, this, and this. You've got to be this, this, and this.
Yeah.
In a world that doesn't help us with any of that.
Yeah.
It's madness.
Yeah, because if you're doing the school run and nursery pickup and you've got 2 hours to get everyone fed, bathed, everyone's got emotional meltdowns, everyone's upset, it's a lot for your nervous system, you know, like it's this idea that you're there, like, you know, peeling carrots and like feeding them mung beans and all of this stuff, and everyone's like playing with very tasteful Montessori wooden toys, and you know, there's no screens and there's no sugar, and like I'm really happy for people that make that their reality. Hats off to them, but that is not what most people's lives look like.
And it just adds to that list of, well, you should, well, your baby should, well, they should not, and it just adds to that list of rules that we feel we've got to achieve to be able to call ourselves.
Because, and you know, you can absolutely know something's normal and still be pissed off about it, can't you?
Absolutely.
You know, just, you know,
absolutely. So, I spent my life pissed off with Evie, even though you know, for her she's normal. She is really bloody hard, and I spend a lot of my time. Don't tell anybody this, but I spend a lot of my time not liking my kids very much, and not liking being a parent. It doesn't stop me loving them.
No,
I love them so much, but man.
I
don't like them all the time, and I don't like being a parent all the time.
Because it's full on.
Bloody hard. It's really hard.
So I think that idea, like just as in like the sleep training world, there's this idealized aesthetic of the child that sleeps perfectly, does the 2-hour-long lunch nap, self-settles, all of this stuff, and the homes are immaculate and everyone's happy and no one's got any kinds of problems in the world, you know, they've got perfect marriages and the kids are great and everything's like that. There's that, but then there's also the other side of that kind of gentle world where everyone is serene and happy to deal with a baby who's waking a million times a night, and you know, all those things. And it's like both of those are lying, I think, to mothers.
Absolutely. And social media just kind of magnifies that, because I mean, you've got the people who are you've got some people who say I hate my kids, and they're kind of they're very negative, and that feels a bit uncomfortable.
I know what you mean. There's some people I think, oh, that's a bit too far, and do you like your kids ever? Because sometimes you don't, that's fine, but do you ever like them?
And then there's the other people who are like, oh, they're just such a ray of sunshine, and actually we're all in the middle, but there's not many people like us who are just, man, this is crap. This is crap. No, I still don't want to stop breastfeeding, but I'm still hating it right now, but I don't want to stop. I just want to moan and say it's crap and I'm finding it hard. That's okay.
But breastfeeding is a great example of that, isn't it? It's sort of like, I understand why that becomes a battleground in lots of people's like conversations about it, because it's something that a lot of people want to do, that they feel guilty about not always loving, but it's painted maybe as this blissful, perfect experience. So if you don't have that, you feel like a failure. If it goes well for you and it's working, but you don't like certain aspects, then you might feel a lot of shame around that. Like, oh, I thought I was supposed to have this endless selflessness, and I'm not, like, oh my goodness, I'm not 100% selfless. There must be something wrong with me.
I know.
You know?
I know. You are allowed to express dissatisfaction and not actually want to change anything.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. But I suppose it's not going to make a lot of money. But people don't make a lot of money out of leaning in and surrendering. I suppose that's the problem.
That is the problem. Yes, that's why I'm not making any money. I'll start saying yes, what you need to do, what you should do, what you shouldn't do.
Yeah.
And I spend £1,000 with me and I'll fix it all.
I think you could though, Helen. I trust you.
I absolutely could not.
You definitely could. I think you're being too hard on yourself. I think you've got it. I think you've got it more together than any of the the kind of fakers that I see anyway.
Well, yeah. Underneath, I've just got my pajamas on with a gin bottle right here. This is not water.
I thought it looked a bit thicker when you were drinking. It might be Monday morning, but yeah.
Yeah. It's Friday night somewhere.
Exactly, yeah. But yeah, I suppose what also annoys me, I suppose, is the idea, and I think I saw a meme with this, and I'm going to paraphrase, but it's wild that we would call just treating children with respect and empathy has to have a name like gentle parenting, because essentially that's all gentle parenting is. It's treating babies and children like human beings, right? Like it's just treating them how you might want to be treated. So if you were crying, upset, and to the point that you were being sick, someone would come in and say, are you okay? It really, I find it strange that there's even a category of parenting that says just trust your child when they're upset, trust that they're crying, that they're not manipulating you.
That's so true. I never thought about it like that, but you're absolutely true. That why do we need to have everything in these little categories? I don't know really.
Yeah, because honestly, I'm not a gentle parent, even though I suppose I would use that hashtag so people can find my information. I suppose that's helpful, gentle parenting, so you can sort of start to weed out, right, well, what are you, is this more of an authoritarian page, or is this, I suppose that's the thing, isn't it? It's like you mentioned permissiveness earlier as well. And I think that's something that's important to talk about. So what do you mean when you say permissive parenting?
Well, to be for me as a gentle, responsive parent, that doesn't mean to say that I let my kids do anything. I have got some very, very clear boundaries.
Yeah.
When we're at the dinner table, we don't have phones. We all sit down. There are I've got some very, very definite boundaries, because I know that my kids feel safe and secure when those boundaries are firm. It's when you've got no boundaries, then your children are pushing all over the place, because they don't know where they go. They don't know where they stand. They don't know where they fit. They don't know where they're safe. So being gentle does not mean being permissive. It means being firm but loving. Yeah. So it's about kind of recognizing the things that we need as a family. How can I keep you safe in that and let you explore things in a loving way, but that's got some kind of end limits to it, because otherwise all hell breaks loose. And when you've got a busy household, you need those limits. And I think it's when things go outside those limits, which they do because they're kids, it's about having some kind of connection with them before you correct them. So connection before correction. It's not about never telling them off. It's about saying, I love you. Yeah. You're not having another biscuit. Yeah. Tea in a minute, Yes.
Yeah.
I've got a cuddle for you if you would like it. It's just respecting them as individuals, but kind of saying, that's the limit. That's the boundary.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm really sorry. I know that you're frustrated that you've got to go in your car seat. I know you don't want to, but you've got to. And I'll give you a puzzle when you get out.
That's it. Yeah.
I mean, I don't get it right half the time, but what's that? Donald Winnicott, good enough parenting.
Good enough, yeah.
I'm good enough.
Yeah. And that really is the best. That's the irony.
Well,
it is the best. Yeah.
It is, because when we try to paint this amazing, perfect world, perfect life, that nothing ever hurts our children, we do them a disservice, because we don't allow them to feel frustration and disappointment and anger and all those other negative emotions in a safe environment. They need to do all those things. They need to feel all of that. to
Mm-hmm.
be emotionally mature.
Mm-hmm.
So they need to, and they need to know that we're not perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yes.
I messed that up. I'm really, really sorry. I'm so
Yeah.
sorry I shouted.
Yeah. Yeah. I know I might make many, many parenting mistakes. I know I will, but at least the one mistake I won't make is my son growing up thinking he has a perfect mother. At least I've got that one covered.
I've got that one covered too.
Done that, nailed it.
Yeah, nailed that a lot actually.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's important, isn't it? You know, but it's, yeah, you're right. It's not, I just think you've explained that really well, you know, that, yeah, they're about, you can have boundaries, age appropriate boundaries. And, you know, it's, there's this idea that if you do one thing for one child, it means you have to do it for all of them, or you have to do it forever, or, you know, because you lay with Evie, you know, when she's 5 and going through whatever she's going through right now, doesn't mean that you'll always have to lie with her until she's 35, or
But I hope not.
oh, you might do though, I don't know.
I do.
Might feel like you might do.
I got in touch with one of them sleep trainers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I
You know,
know.
and every child is different, and every parent is different at different stages of their lives, and you've got different, yeah. So I think that's something that a lot of people who want to be responsive and loving parents struggle with sometimes, is that idea. Then it's like, well, how do I hold that boundary? Like, how do I say no in a firm but loving way? And that is,
it's about kind of figuring out where the boundaries are. So if you've got a child who's hitting, or who's biting or throwing or whatever it is, figuring out what the trigger points are, what the boundaries that you want to hold, how are you going to do it, and having that in your mind beforehand. Because often when these things happen, when somebody's chucking something across the room for the 50th time, that can be really triggering. Whereas if when you're calm, you've had time to think, okay, so they're throwing, so what I'm going to do is this and this, and have that as a kind of plan, and you can discuss it with your co-parent or whatever, and come up with a plan. Then it's a bit easier to kind of not get so triggered and cross. And but a lot of these things, if you things like hitting or biting or throwing, they're all part of schemas, aren't they? They're all kind of developmental things that children need to go through. It's allowing them the opportunity to do those things and to develop those skills in a way that's safe. So if there's throwing, it's all right, come on, let's go outside and throw a ball.
Yeah.
You can still do it. You're not saying no, but there's boundaries that you don't do it here.
Yeah. And it's difficult, isn't it, when we're talking about babies, because it's such a long game, it's so long before they can talk to you. You can have the conversation. I think it's so much easier when you can talk to them about it, isn't it?
It really is. Yeah. Toddlers, for all their quirks, they are incredible.
They are. I love toddlers.
They're so uncomplicated.
Yeah.
Aren't they? They know what they want. They can only think of one emotion at a time.
Yeah.
That's just, I'm furious.
Yeah.
That's just, I'm excited. Nothing else. It's just.
Me too. I think there's so much magic in that.
It really is.
My son started saying, I'm feeling a lot bit blue right now, because it's a little bit or a lot bit. It's really, I'm feeling a lot bit blue right now, and it's just the sweetest thing to see him. And and in so many ways, my instinct, I suppose, maybe this is how I was parented, was to be like, no, you're not. No. Don't feel that. Don't, you're okay. You're not. But actually, I suppose what I try to do is be like, okay, I understand that.
I did a post on, it was a video, I think, on the science of tears, and how it's really, as much as from a sleep point of view, I don't want to leave anybody to cry. I don't want to make anybody feel unsupported, child or parent, or unresponded to. But actually having a child cry because disappointed or because they are cross, it's really good. It's really, that therein lies resilience and adaptation and emotional maturity. It's really good for them to say, I feel sad or I feel cross. Yeah, you do, and that's okay. That's all right. And it will get better. It won't last.
Oh, I know, it's heartbreaking.
Little hearts.
I know. You just want to take it away, don't you? Like yesterday, my my mother-in-law had come to stay, and my son just sobbed saying goodbye. I don't want to say goodbye to you, Grandma. I want you to live here. I miss her so much. And just I know, I was like trying not to cry, and he was like, his little bottom lip was going, and
Oh, good to express those emotions and for you to name
yeah,
them and say,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, you
yeah,
can miss grandma, that's okay.
yeah, yeah. It's hard though, isn't it? And that's just one little experience, and it's hard. And when that stuff's coming up for yourself as well, and
Yeah.
you sometimes see yourself, don't you, and your children, and the things, the
Yes.
emotions you felt or feel, and yeah,
Yeah, gosh, that can be triggering, can't it? That can bring
yeah,
out the best or the worst sometimes.
yeah. Do you feel like with everything you've been through and overcome, or do you feel like parenting has been part of your healing process?
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah,
Especially when I realized that I could do it on my own. I
yeah,
was doing it on my own, and my kids were better off that because I was doing it on my own.
yeah,
That, but then the enormity of that responsibility sometimes hits. I remember thinking, so if I don't clean their teeth, nobody else is going to do that. And it was just that little one task, just that
yeah,
realization. If I don't do this, no
yeah,
other mother's going to do it. Very overwhelming, but actually, yeah, it has been a very kind of positive process. Very positive.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
I just think you're such a resilient person, and there's so much, yeah, so much courage, and because I think it does take courage to be honest and be open and vulnerable, and
yeah,
you
yeah,
know um
yeah. I wouldn't have been able to do it a while ago, but that's what healing does, doesn't it? We've all got stuff we need to heal from.